Go on, leave. You won't last a week without me. That's what she said, glass of wine in hand, her smile wide and fake, her tone daring me like it was all some kind of game. There were 5 people in the room. One of them was her yoga friend with the fake French accent. Another was a guy she swore was just a friend from the nonprofit board, though he'd accidentally called her babe once when he thought I wasn't listening. They all laughed, not nervously, genuinely, like I was the entertainment, like my silence meant agreement. She made a toast to resilient women who carry their men like unpaid emotional labor. Everyone raised their glasses. I looked down at my hand, twisted the wedding ring gently, and let it slide off. No drama, no monologue. Just placed it quietly on the cold granite island beside the keys. She didn't notice at first. She was too busy basking in the applause of her friends. I walked to the door. I could hear her behind me, still chuckling. "Come on, it's a joke. Don't be so dramatic, honey," she called out, her voice losing a little confidence with every syllable. I didn't respond. Just opened the front door of the house I paid for, stepped outside, and shut it behind me. Soft click. That's it. Most men don't leave. We compartmentalize, we bury it, we go for long drives, then come back, swallow pride, and pretend we didn't hear the 1,000 tiny humiliations. But every man has a final one. This was mine. Look, if you're still reading, odds are you've seen your own version of that smirk. Maybe not as loud, maybe not with wine, but you've seen it. And yeah, over 97% of you read and listen to these without subscribing. I get it. But if this story hits even a little, do us a favor, subscribe. That tiny click tells us someone out there gets it, and it helps the team dig even deeper. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam a door. I didn't take my car. I walked 3 blocks down, around the corner, and sat at the all-night diner that still had those red booths and that humming neon sign. Ordered black coffee. Then I pulled out the old flip phone, not my everyday one, the other one. The one tied to the trust account under a name nobody in her friend group could spell, much less pronounce. Texted a name, one word, done. That single word triggered 6 months of silent work. The kind of work you don't see unless you know where to look. Quiet title changes, sunset clauses in obscure trust documents, exit contingencies buried in LLCs, account transfer proxies that only activate when specific biometric triggers confirm location and intent. She thought she married a sweet, semi-retired consultant who never quite made it. What she married was a man who got tired of being impressive. There's a difference. You see, the reason she got to play Lady Gatsby with her friends every weekend was because I let her wear the illusion like a badge. And illusions are expensive. They need structure, administration, silence. That silence ended the moment she tried to strip it all away with a joke in front of people who never once asked me a real question. When I left that house, I wasn't escaping. I was activating. She still doesn't know that her newest handbag, limited edition, imported, probably bought to flex at her next brunch, was technically purchased under a discretionary line that no longer exists, or that the electric Porsche she insists on calling hers is registered under an entity that's now been dissolved. Sure, it still works. For now. But give it a few days. Wheels turn slower than engines. It wasn't the insult that got me, it was the pattern. The look she gave me when she said it, the certainty, like she knew I wouldn't go through with it, like she thought I still needed her to believe in me. That's when I realized she didn't even believe her own words. She just wanted to see if she could break me publicly. She didn't break me. She introduced me to my exit strategy. I left behind everything I owned, but nothing that I controlled. That's the part she never understood. Control doesn't scream, it doesn't throw plates, it doesn't beg. Control leaves when it's ready and doesn't look back. She didn't even notice I'd taken nothing with me. No suitcase, not a toothbrush, not even the coat she always said made me look just tolerable enough to be seen in. The front hall closet still had the gloves I wore on cold morning walks, and I left my favorite watch on the dish by the sink. If she had a shred of perception left, that alone should have rattled her. Men don't walk away from things they use every day, unless they have already replaced them. But this wasn't about perception. This was about precision. At 2:34 a.m., I checked into a cabin 3 counties over. No GPS trail, no credit card flags, just a paper reservation confirmed weeks earlier, booked under an old family trust name I'd once used to purchase acreage during a downturn in the market. One of those boring details she always waved off with, "Just tell me the fun part. Did we make money?" She never once asked how things were structured, never asked who controlled what. She assumed like a lot of people do, that being loud equals being in charge. The cabin was quiet. Real fireplace, not gas. A simple bed with starched sheets, no Wi-Fi. A rotary phone. It had been remodeled to look rustic, but the documents locked in the antique roll-top desk were anything but. Legal transfers, trust sunset initiations, letters of revocation, triggered by biometric scans and time-locked to unlock at 48-hour intervals. I opened drawer 3 and inserted the fingerprint key. No drama, just quiet confirmation. She always said I was boring. Predictable, she once scoffed during a dinner party after I mentioned casually that I'd rather invest in something stable than throw 50 grand into an app her friend's boyfriend swore would be the next Uber. He was now bartending in Austin. I own half the commercial building they rent. She never asked where that money came from. In the months leading up to this, I'd done 3 things simultaneously: shifted ownership of our real estate holdings from joint tenancy to tenancy in common with asymmetric buyout triggers, reassigned capital gains protections to new entities with single member control, guess who, and altered the liquidity access on 2 equity accounts that, in her mind, were ours. None of it flashy, just quiet adjustments, the kind you don't even notice unless someone tells you exactly what to look for. The thing about building a financial web is that it only feels like a trap if you're not the one weaving it. She walked around like a queen, but every title she waved around, every asset she assumed was hers by marriage, was propped up by scaffolding she never once cared to examine. And now, the scaffolding was gone. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was detachment, precision, clean as bone. There was no note, no trail. Just the sound of her echoing laughter still ringing in my ears, dull and distant. I pictured her waking up, walking into the kitchen, annoyed that the coffee wasn't brewed, the dishwasher not emptied, then glancing around, realizing the car was still in the garage. My phone wasn't on the nightstand, my shoes were at the door. But I wasn't. She'd assume, at first, that I was sulking, that I'd come crawling back after a few hours, maybe the next day. Maybe I needed space. She might even laugh about it with her friends, tell them I was taking a man break. She'd pour herself that stupid lemon-flavored sparkling water and stretch out on the couch, imagining me alone in some dusty motel, regretting everything. What she wouldn't imagine is that, while she sipped and smirked, a network of account freezes would quietly initiate. That our shared equity line, used to pay for her Pilates studio startup, would halt, pending reassignment review. That certain emergency clauses she never understood in the trust documents would flag external activity as potential risk and lock access. And by the time she noticed, it'd be too late to undo. She called me predictable, but she never asked what I was preparing for, because people like her never assume the quiet ones are capable of leaving. They think silence equals weakness, but silence is just the sound of focus. And that night, as the fire cracked and my thumb hovered over a satellite-connected device with encrypted access to every piece of documentation she never thought to read, the only thing I felt was calm. Control doesn't need noise. It needs distance. And I had just given myself both. She woke up late, sunlight already spilling through the gaps in the blackout curtains. No sign of coffee, no clinking of dishes. No background hum of the news channel he always had on too loud in the mornings. For a second, she looked around, blinking, then remembered. Right, his little tantrum. She stretched lazily, picked up her phone, checked for messages. Nothing. No missed calls, no desperate texts, no apologies. She scoffed. Typical. Playing the silent martyr. Let him sweat, she muttered, padding barefoot into the kitchen. The espresso machine blinked at her. No pre-programmed shot like usual. She rolled her eyes, opened the fridge, grabbed her overpriced sparkling water, and took a sip. Still nothing. She refreshed her inbox, then the chat apps, even checked that old Facebook Messenger thread she hated that he still used. Nothing. By noon, the smirk had faded. It started with her father. He didn't say hello, just launched in with that tone, the one he used when her quarterly reports were late. The bank rang us. Something's going on with the equity account. Said there's been a flagged transfer and a temporary hold under some clause. What the hell is clause 14D? She blinked. What? I thought you said the account was under your management now. It is. I mean, He doesn't touch it. He hasn't for months. It's just in both our names for tax reasons. That's all. We agreed. Her father was quiet. Then why is your name not showing as primary signatory anymore? She fumbled. I don't know. Maybe he moved something around, but it's nothing serious. Probably just an internal review. It's happened before. No, it hasn't. Click. 2 minutes later, her boss called. She hesitated before answering. She never liked how quickly he picked up on her nervousness. Hey, she chirped too brightly. Why was the joint venture fund flagged for review? He asked flatly. Compliance emailed me. It's frozen pending authorization. Her stomach tightened. What? No, it shouldn't be. That's our working capital line, not his. That's not what the paperwork says. Legal just sent me the original formation documents. I asked for them the second I saw the freeze. She stood frozen in the center of the kitchen, cold marble under her feet. That horrible hum of the fridge suddenly unbearable. He wasn't even involved in that. I mean, technically, he helped me incorporate it, but he didn't care about the day-to-day. He always said it was my thing. Silence on the line. He filed as beneficial officer. Her boss finally said, his name is on the controlling interest document. The bank flagged the account because that designation was activated. What designation? Contingency override. You really should have read the fine print. He hung up before she could even sputter out a defense. The glass slipped in her hand and shattered against the sink. She stood there in silence, a hand trembling, sparkling lemon water dripping down the cabinet door. She grabbed her tablet, logged into the banking portal. Access denied. She tried again, using the credentials she always used, the ones he'd set up to simplify things. Denied. She tried calling him, straight to voicemail. Again, voicemail. Again, this number is unavailable at this time. She tried texting. Can we talk? Then, I think something's wrong with the accounts. Then 18 minutes later, okay, seriously, I need you to answer. No response. She pulled out the folder from the drawer where she kept all the boring finance stuff. Pages and pages of legalese, most of it skimmed at best, signed with a flourish over wine and dinner. It's just legal boilerplate, he'd said once, for tax flow efficiency. She'd smiled, nodded, signed, like she always did. One paper caught her eye, some clause highlighted in yellow. She didn't remember the highlighting. Clause 9C. It referenced trust distributions contingent on signatory status in the event of dissolution or prolonged absence. Prolonged absence, what the hell did that even mean? She tried Googling it, her search history filled with things like trust override meaning and how long absence counts legally. She wasn't crying. Not yet. Just angry, confused, cornered. She looked around the kitchen, suddenly noticing everything he'd bought, the range, the island, the ridiculous wine fridge she used once a month to show off. He hadn't just left the house, he'd left her with an entire infrastructure she didn't understand, one he'd built while she was too busy joking about his boring spreadsheets and rolling her eyes when he muttered about rebalancing accounts. There were more calls that day. The investment property agent, the accountant, even her assistant flagged an email that bounced from their LLC's billing address. None of it made sense, until she realized it wasn't supposed to. He didn't just vanish. He orchestrated an erasure. And she was finally starting to understand that the silence wasn't a tantrum. It was a message. She didn't sleep that night, not because she missed him, but because nothing made sense. Her entire sense of control had been tied to a balance she never bothered to check herself, to relationships she assumed were unshakable, to accounts and structures she let him handle while she hosted cheese and wine nights and gave unsolicited business advice to influencers barely out of college. At 7:42 a.m., she drove straight to the private banking office. She hadn't been there in years, always preferred to let the boys handle the boring stuff. It was nestled in a sandstone building with ivy climbing the front, except this time the blinds were drawn. The sign on the glass door wasn't subtle. This location has permanently closed. For all inquiries, contact your relationship manager. She called the number listed. Voicemail. She hit redial. Again. Finally, she called another contact, someone from a board she briefly sat on, whose husband worked adjacent to the financial services side. Left a message. Then another. By noon, she was back home, barefoot in the kitchen, pacing like a trapped animal, hitting refresh on the banking portal every few minutes. At 2:07 p.m., an email pinged into her inbox. Subject: Account change notification. Action required. She opened it, heart hammering. Notice, per Clause 9C of the trust agreement, primary account access has been revoked under trustee override. No further access will be granted without explicit reinstatement by the controlling party. Clause 9C. That damn clause again. She bolted to the cabinet, dug through the disorganized folder of printed legal documents, spilling pages across the floor. There it was again, highlighted in a document she only half remembered signing back when he insisted they consolidate holdings for tax efficiency. She'd signed it after 2 glasses of wine, barely glancing at the language. All she remembered was him saying, "This just keeps things smooth if anything happens." She thought if anything happens meant a stroke or a recession. Not this. She called Vanessa, a lawyer friend she'd always bragged about knowing, the kind of woman who posted filtered court selfies and captioned them with Beyoncé quotes. Not exactly a state law, but she figured legal was legal. Vanessa arrived 40 minutes later, iced coffee in one hand, $1,000 bag in the other. She scanned the clause, lips pursed. "You shouldn't have signed this." "Okay, thank you, Captain Hindsight, but what is it?" Vanessa tapped the page. "This lets the trustee, in this case him, revoke access without a court order if you meet the condition of prolonged absence of mutual control. That's lawyer speak for if one of you disappears or ghosts or stops participating jointly, the other can lock everything." "I didn't disappear. He did." Vanessa shrugged. "Doesn't matter. He activated it first. Whoever pulls the trigger first wins. It's written right here." "Why would I sign that?" she hissed. "You probably didn't read it. Most people don't. You wanted to consolidate, let him take care of it, right?" She went silent, staring down at the signature, her own name in her own handwriting. Arrogant, looped like a signature on a fashion line. Vanessa stood. "You're screwed, babe. This isn't just about money. It's control. He's vacuum sealing you out of the whole structure." After she left, the silence in the house grew unbearable. She turned on the TV, flipped channels, then off again. She stood in the living room, staring at the massive abstract painting he'd bought for her 40th. Said it reminded him of her, chaotic but magnetic. At the time, she'd scoffed and said it clashed with the walls. Now it was the only thing left that didn't feel like a lie. Her phone buzzed again. Another automated notice. Vehicle registration change pending. Co-ownership transfer initiated under LLC dissolution terms. Her car, the Tesla she swore she'd earned after launching her 3-month social media campaign about empowering women in business. She threw the phone against the wall. It bounced, didn't even crack. The walls weren't closing in, they were folding inward, like the whole house was a paper model and someone just pinched the corners. She tried to call him. Again, voicemail, tried to text, "You're overreacting, just come home, we can fix this." Then, "I didn't mean what I said, I was joking, it was just a joke. You can't seriously do this." No reply. She walked through every room of the house, each piece of furniture, each painting, each gadget and appliance and imported lamp, all of it curated, all of it hers, except it wasn't. Not technically, not anymore. She sat on the velvet chaise in her walk-in closet and let herself feel the panic for a full 10 minutes. Then rage took over. She'd told everyone he was harmless, that he'd be nothing without her, that he needed her more than she needed him. She said it in book clubs, whispered it during brunches, even posted about emotionally stunted men who can't survive without female labor. And now here she was, locked out of accounts, cornered by paperwork, betrayed by her own signature. This wasn't abandonment, this was architecture, cold, brutal, exacting, and he'd planned every inch of it while she laughed in his face. She was running out of names. The accountant dodged her calls. The lawyer who helped draft their joint living trust emailed her a canned response. As per confidentiality terms, "I am not at liberty to discuss client documentation without mutual consent." The banker still vanished. Even the barista at her usual cafe asked if Mr. Sinclair was okay. So polite, always tipping extra, always asking how finals went, as if he was the one who needed checking on. It was surreal. She hadn't just been ghosted, she'd been quietly excommunicated. That's when she thought of Greg. Greg, His oldest friend, the one with the beard that never quite grew in, who wore boots with suits and had a voice like gravel dragged across concrete. She always thought Greg was beneath them, some kind of nostalgic charity friendship he kept around from high school. She called him Garage Greg behind his back because he restored vintage cars in his free time and brought his own beer to their New Year's parties. But he was loyal. And right now, she needed someone, anyone, who would tell her what the hell was going on. She called twice before he picked up. No hello, just a flat. Why are you calling me? Her throat was dry. Greg, I just need to know where he is. Pause, then, no, you don't. You owe me. I put up with your weirdness and your redneck jokes for years. He would have dropped you if not for me. Greg laughed, but not kindly. You always thought that, didn't you? She stiffened. This isn't a joke. My accounts are frozen. The joint venture is under review. I'm locked out of my own life. Greg's tone didn't change. It was never your life. You're taking his side? Greg let out a long, tired breath. He told me years ago this would happen. Said one day you'd test him in public, humiliate him, and that'd be the last time. Said he wouldn't yell, wouldn't beg, he'd just walk. And when he did, everything would already be in motion. She blinked. So what, you helped him? You were part of this little, male revenge fantasy? No, I didn't help him. He didn't need help. He built the structure. You were just living in it. The words landed with more weight than she expected. She stumbled for a response, rage blooming behind her eyes. God, you're all the same. Pathetic men needing to feel powerful. Is this what you do when you lose control? You cut women out of their own lives like they're tenants in your little emotional Airbnb. Greg didn't rise to the bait. You were never cut out. You were asked to participate. He invited you into every part of it. You just never showed up. You thought it was beneath you. That's not true. Isn't it? He snapped. First time his voice sharpened. Every time he tried to show you something, you rolled your eyes, called it boring, called him boring. You mocked the very system that paid for your spa weekends and gallery walls. You told people he was lucky to have you, but he was the one covering your taxes when your consulting gig tanked, the one restructuring his holdings so your name wouldn't get dragged if you defaulted on that vanity business loan. But yeah, sure, he needed you. The line was silent for a moment, then quieter. You don't even know what you signed, do you? He didn't explain. He did, Greg cut in. You didn't listen, and now you want to bail out. You think loyalty is about friendship. It's not. It's about respect, and you never respected him. He hung up. She stared at the phone in her hand, the screen still lit up with the call summary. 11 minutes. 11 minutes. And she somehow managed to lose one of the last people who might have offered her a rope. She slumped onto the velvet bench in the entryway, bought after a Paris trip she booked with his points, and called a necessary self-care detox. Her reflection caught in the gilded hallway mirror. Disheveled, tired, not tragic, just diminished. The isolation was seeping in now. Not loneliness, not yet, but a kind of reputational rot. People weren't rallying behind her, no sympathetic texts, no dramatic "are you okay" calls. Her friends were distant. One had messaged her a meme that morning and then gone radio silent. Another tagged her in a story, brunch without her. The silence around her wasn't emptiness. It was alignment, the quiet sound of everyone picking a side without saying a word. She was starting to understand that control isn't about shouting loudest. It's about being the one holding the wires. And the man she dismissed, the man she called predictable, replaceable, and her favorite, a half-retired filler husband, had quietly been the electrician for her entire life. Now he'd cut the power, and all she could do was sit in the dark and pretend she hadn't flipped the switch. She tried to pivot. That's what she called it, pivoting. It was one of her favorite words, like she was the CEO of her own life. And every disaster was just another opportunity to rebrand. She even wore it like a mantra that week, repeating it in the mirror while slathering on skincare from a subscription box he used to pay for. Pivoting meant pretending that the financial world around her wasn't being systematically shut down, that Greg was just bitter, that the banker was just on vacation, that her husband, no, ex, she started saying, was just having a midlife tantrum and would soon come crawling back with apologies and an inbox full of "please take me back" messages. So she decided to take action. She picked the cleanest, easiest win in her portfolio, an investment property she'd been planning to flip, a nice mid-century duplex in a gentrifying neighborhood, currently under contract with a buyer who was ready to close. Cash, no contingencies. She forwarded the sale documents to her attorney, added a note, "Let's push this through fast, need the liquidity." The lawyer called her an hour later. "Hey," she chirped, "everything good?" There was a long pause. "Technically, no. The deed has a survivorship rider." What the hell does that mean? It means the property was titled with rights of survivorship. Basically, both owners have to agree to sell, or one has to be, well, dead. She rolled her eyes. "Okay, well, we're getting divorced, so just remove him." Another pause. "You can't. Not unless he signs a dissolution," which he hasn't, and I checked. He placed a restriction on the title 6 months ago. Recorded, legal. "It locks any unilateral transfer." She shot up from the velvet chaise, voice sharp. "You're telling me I can't sell something I own?" "You don't own it. You own half the survivorship interest, and half of that is now locked. It's a technicality, but a very real one." She threw her hand up. "Why would he do that?" "You mean, why would he anticipate this?" "Maybe because he knows you." She hung up. In the silence that followed, the walls of her curated life pulsed with betrayal, not just his, but hers, her betrayal of her own disinterest, the details she ignored, the clauses she skimmed, the signatures she offered like lipstick on receipts. The next day, she went to the DMV to renew her car registration. The Tesla, her Tesla, was up for renewal, and she wanted no hiccups. She arrived early, dressed in that casual don't-you-know-who-I-am blend of Lululemon and vintage sunglasses. The clerk tapped at her screen, then frowned. "I'm sorry, this registration is currently on hold." "Excuse me?" "There's a pending restructure of ownership. Your name is still on the file, but the LLC that holds title is being reviewed for status." "What LLC?" she snapped. "Sinclair Blue Holdings, ma'am." She froze. That was one of his companies. She thought it was just some umbrella shell he used for consulting invoices, something boring, something unimportant. "When was this filed?" 3 months ago." "And when does the hold lift?" "When the reclassification completes, or if the managing member signs an override." She laughed out loud, a bitter, brittle sound. "Let me guess," she said. "He's the managing member." The clerk didn't answer. She didn't need to. She drove home without music. Parked in the garage that still opened with a clicker she now eyed suspiciously, sat in the car for 20 minutes, engine off, surrounded by leather and silence. She lived in luxury, but nothing in it belonged to her. Not the car, not the property, not even the damn marble kitchen she used to film her Instagram cooking with confidence reels in. It wasn't that he had taken things from her. It was that she never owned them in the first place. She wandered back inside, trailing her fingers along the curved banister he'd custom commissioned after she mentioned liking something similar in a magazine spread. She remembered mocking him for spending so much time comparing contractors. "You research like you're proposing to them," she joked. He didn't laugh. He just kept researching. Now she understood why. Every detail in their life was selected, structured, and bound not by whim but by strategy. She'd been living in a fortress and assumed the walls were decorative. Turns out they were load-bearing and coded to recognize only his voice. She pulled out a bottle of wine. Mid-tier vintage, but still too good to waste. Drank it straight from the bottle on the designer couch. No glass, no performance. Just her. In a luxury prison, beautifully appointed. And somewhere out there, the man she dismissed was watching her struggle with doors she didn't even know had locks. She told herself it couldn't get worse. She was wrong. Her phone rang while she was halfway through composing a vaguely apologetic email to the joint venture's biggest investor. She hadn't even sent it yet. The tone was delicate, somewhere between "everything's fine" and "we're experiencing temporary turbulence." She had no idea what she was talking about, just copy-pasting from crisis PR templates she found online. It was her boss. Again, but this time, no "hey there," no pretend civility, just "why is our operating line frozen?" She blinked. "What?" "Our primary account, the one tied to the origination funds. Compliance flagged it this morning. Every transaction over $25K is now being reviewed." I don't know anything about that, she stammered. Maybe it's some kind of audit thing, or maybe something triggered a threshold. He didn't respond. I can look into it, she added quickly, trying to control her voice. I'm sure it's just a... Stop, he cut in. Legal already sent me something. She froze. Expect an email shortly, he said, and hung up. For a moment, she didn't move, just stared at the wall across from her desk. The painting behind it, abstract waves in gold foil, suddenly felt ridiculous, like it belonged in someone else's life. She realized absurdly that she'd chosen it because it matched her Instagram aesthetic, not because she liked it. The email arrived exactly 3 hours later, from legal, forwarded directly from the compliance officer. The subject line, urgent, confirmation of beneficial officer status required. She opened it. The body was one sentence long. Please confirm if this individual remains a beneficial officer under the capital origination agreement. Beneath that, an image attachment. Her fingers hovered before clicking. The photo was a scanned document, familiar, but now weaponized. A notarized declaration from 2 years ago, with the original capital formation paperwork for the JV. There in black ink, above a signature line labeled Beneficial Officer Managing Advisor was his name. Below it, dated and sealed, his signature, and next to it, hers. Not an afterthought, not a witness. A co-signatory affirming that he held discretionary oversight rights in the event of managerial compromise or dissolution. She hadn't remembered signing that part. But there it was, her handwriting. She recognized the loop on the Y in her last name. Back then, she thought it was symbolic, ceremonial, something to keep him in the loop, because she didn't want him to feel left out of her big business pivot. She hadn't even read the second page. That second page was now burning holes through her screen. She tried calling her assistant, no answer. Texted her lawyer, urgent, please review doc I just got, then scrolled back through her old messages with him. The last one she ever sent before this all started still sat there, unread. You're overreacting. Come home. We can fix this. She deleted it. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Even the HVAC system seemed to exhale with judgment. She walked into her home office, decorated like the set of a tech startup founder interview. Sleek furniture, acrylic desk chair, that expensive pink-hued neon sign that read, "Build your own empire." She wanted to rip it off the wall. He was the empire. He'd built the scaffolding for everything. Every LLC, every tax shield, every offshore pivot entity they used to defer her quarterly earnings. He filed the initial documents not because she needed help, but because he knew what she didn't. Compliance is bloodless. It doesn't care how good you look in a pantsuit, it only listens to paper. And she had signed all the paper, willingly. The kind of ignorance she used to wear like a crown, I'm an idea person, not a numbers girl, was now strangling her. She'd played CEO while outsourcing the machinery. Now the machinery was asking questions, and her crown had turned into a noose. Another email came in, this one from their largest partner firm. We've placed all pending disbursements on hold pending clarification of your authority structure. Please provide updated documents reflecting sole control. She stared at the screen. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. She didn't have updated documents. She didn't even know what half the acronyms meant. She was now the face of a company that might not legally belong to her, and everyone was looking at her for answers. She sat down slowly, suddenly aware of the weight of the chair, the way it didn't support her back. All the ergonomics and design choices meant to make her look important, useless now. She wanted to scream. Instead, she closed the laptop. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a reporter, some second-tier financial blog wanting a quote about the freeze. She didn't answer, threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a dull thud and slid to the floor, lighting up with another call before going dark again. She was unraveling, not because he had taken something from her, but because he'd left her exactly what she asked for, full control, and she had no idea what to do with it. It came as a formal envelope, cream-colored, hand-delivered, no return address. Not an email, not a call, not a text from her. Old school, intentional. He opened it and let the card slide into his hand. A dinner invitation. At the club her father used for political fundraisers and off-the-record deals. The kind of place where men wore watches worth more than starter homes, and the valet didn't ask names. The handwritten note inside was brief. Let's talk. Just us. You have my respect. He almost didn't go, not out of spite, out of disinterest, but curiosity, that old itch, nudged him. What would the patriarch say now that the chessboard had flipped? He arrived early, not by much, just enough to control the room. He greeted the staff by name, ordered tea, let himself be seated where the sun from the tall windows hit just right. By the time James walked in, everything already felt settled. James approached like a senator trying to salvage a scandal, calm, tight-lipped, commanding the air like he still owned it. He extended a hand. The gesture hung a beat too long before being accepted. You look well, James said, sitting. I am. They didn't exchange small talk. No mention of weather, golf, the economy. James got to it, his voice low but pointed. She's broken, he said. You've made your point. She's sorry, he added after a pause. Like a period that didn't stick. He didn't flinch. Good for her. James leaned in slightly, trying to soften the edge. She's not the only one embarrassed. There are reverberations. Banks. Partners. Lawyers calling me now. You've set off a chain reaction. He reached into his coat pocket and unfolded a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a threat. It was clarity. A printed spreadsheet, clean, color-coded, precise, dates, transfers, ownership reassignments, clause references, legal doc IDs, a complete timeline of the 6-month reconfiguration, the quiet unraveling of her imagined empire. One signature was circled in red ink. Hers. The clause she never read, the one she signed without eye contact, distracted by a vision board Zoom call playing on her iPad, the same signature that had unlocked his full override of the trust's internal management protocols. This, he said, tapping the page gently, was your daughter's consent, not mine. I didn't trick her, I didn't deceive her. I handed her the map. She lit the match. James studied the paper, lips thinning. She's not built for this, he said after a moment. She says you've turned everyone against her. I didn't turn anyone, he replied calmly. I just stopped translating. James shook his head. You've humiliated her. No, he said, voice cool. She did that when she invited an audience to my collapse and assumed I wouldn't notice. There was no anger, just distance, the kind that made reconciliation impossible. It wasn't a grudge, it was a locked door. James exhaled. It was the sound of a man trying to shift gears that no longer existed. So, what do you want? The question hung in the air. He smiled. Not cruelly, not even smugly, just with the quiet confidence of a man who had been called nothing for years until his silence became too heavy to ignore. I don't want revenge, he said. I want distance. He folded the document again, set it gently between them on the table like a napkin at the end of a meal. Permanently. James frowned. That's not how family works. He looked out the window, sunlight warming his face. You're confusing family with proximity. A server approached. James waved him off. She'll lose everything, James said, lower now, not as a threat, but as an admission. No, he replied, standing. She'll keep everything she created, and only that. He buttoned his jacket, took a sip of the tea, cooled now but still sharp. James stared up at him. You really don't want her back. He turned to leave. No, James. I don't want her near me. Outside, the air was crisp. The valet brought the car around, same old Audi she once mocked for, looking like a professor's retirement gift. He thanked the young man, tipped him twice what was expected, and slid into the seat. As he pulled away from the club, the building behind him shimmered slightly in the rearview mirror, polished, prestigious, full of men who thought control came from title and volume. But he knew better now. Control wasn't granted. It was signed away, quietly, blindly, by people too proud to read the fine print. The sign went up on a Thursday morning. Black letters, stark and clean. For sale. Private listing. No charming fixer-upper, no cozy script font. Just a bold declaration that something once permanent was now temporary. She saw it through the upstairs window, clutching a lukewarm mug of herbal tea. The same mug she used in every one of her morning routine reels. She watched the agent hammer the post into the manicured lawn and felt something sharp twist in her stomach. The house. Her house. The one she decorated down to the millimeter.
the one she called an extension of my brand, the one she thought she'd die in, still in his name. The marble countertops, his, the heated flooring, his, the solar panels she bragged about for their eco footprint, paid for through a credit line he opened in a trust only he had access to. The swimming pool, part of a construction loan, long since paid, on a property title she'd never bothered to verify. She tried to contest the listing, called her attorney in a fury. "He can't sell it out from under me. I live here." The attorney was calm.
Not surprised. You don't own it. You never did. But we were married. You were. That doesn't override legal title, especially not when the marital agreement you signed specifically waives spousal claim in the event of separate asset origin. She remembered the agreement, remembered brushing it off. It's just boilerplate, protection for the consulting firm. Doesn't mean anything. Now it meant everything. A certified letter arrived 2 days later. Thick envelope, heavy with finality. Inside, a formal notice. Per Section 7A of the Occupancy Clause, you are granted 14 calendar days to vacate the premises. After this period, all remaining possessions will be considered abandoned property. 14 days, no mediation, no discussion, no warning. She sat on the edge of the staircase for over an hour, letter in hand, rereading the words like they might change, as if some new phrase would appear, one that offered her a lifeline or loophole. None did. She dialed him. Voicemail. Tried again. Still voicemail. She texted, "Please, just talk to me." Then, "You don't have to do this. We can fix it." An hour passed, then 2. Just before midnight, the phone rang. His number. She answered before the first ring finished. Her voice cracked. "You don't have to do this." There was a pause on the line. Not cold, not cruel, just quiet. Measured. "You're right," he said. "I don't have to, but I will." Click. She stared at the screen, the quiet hum of the disconnected call pressing into her skull. Then she walked barefoot into the kitchen, stood in the center of that cavernous marble floor, the same floor she once described in a magazine interview as timeless, powerful, and grounding, and collapsed. Not dramatically, not like a scene in a movie, just folded. Right there, knees hitting hard stone, palms flat, forehead pressed to the surface she used to post photos of with captions like "Manifest your luxury life." Now the luxury was evaporating, and she was left sitting in the shell of a dream she thought she owned, realizing it had always been borrowed, extended on credit, structured on trust, and signed away with the very pen she used to decorate invitations to parties he quietly paid for. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful anymore. It was judgmental. Echoing. She wandered through the rooms that night, touched furniture she once claimed to have picked but that he had ordered, looked at paintings she never really understood but insisted made the house feel cultured. Everything she once used to perform stability was his. She opened a closet, stared at the rows of designer clothes she used to say photographed well. She couldn't even see herself in them anymore. At 4:12 a.m., she packed her first box. Not because she was ready, but because it was the only choice she had left. She told herself she'd bounce back, she'd find a way, rebuild. But as the echo of his voice replayed in her head, "You're right, I don't have to, but I will," she realized this wasn't about rebuilding. This was about erasure. And he was doing it with surgical precision. It came late, quietly, no subject line, no sender, just a message buried between promotional emails and unsubscribed newsletters she hadn't bothered to clean out since the world cracked beneath her. At first, she almost deleted it. Just another scam, she thought. Another algorithm's guess at her unraveling life. But she opened it, and there it was. A single photo. No caption, no explanation, no plea for response. Just him, sitting outside a small cafe somewhere coastal, sea foam green shutters behind him, sunlight slanting over the table. He wore the same watch she once made fun of for being too classic. Still ticked, still his. Beside him, 2 people. A woman with sleek hair, crisp blazer, tablet open. A lawyer she recognized from the firm that handled his estate planning. And another woman. elegant, composed, possibly late 40s. Not beautiful in the Instagram sense, but grounded, present, a financial advisor maybe, or someone he trusted. They were laughing. Not loud, but real, the kind of laugh that doesn't need to explain itself. He looked free, not vindictive, not smug, just completely untethered. She stared at it for a long time, zoomed in on his face, on his eyes, expected to find something, rage, triumph, grief, but there was none of that. He wasn't looking back. He was simply gone. Her thumb hovered over the trash icon, then drifted to the share button. She thought about sending it to Vanessa, to her father, to Greg, to anyone who might validate the burning knot in her stomach, anyone who might interpret the photo the way she wanted to, a man playing a part, proving a point, waiting for an invitation home. But that wasn't what the picture said. It said, "He doesn't live in your world anymore." So she saved it, didn't respond, didn't delete it, just stared. Later that night, she scrolled through her own photos. Old ones from the curated life she built with captions she used to spend an hour workshopping, power brunch with my rock, manifesting major moves, partners in empire. Now they looked fake, not just posed, fabricated. A woman leaning against a man she believed would never leave because he never raised his voice, never stormed out, never needed to. She mistook quiet for harmless. But quiet is just silence with discipline. She remembered the time he brought her breakfast after she bombed an investor pitch. He said nothing about it, just set the tray down, kissed her head, and went back to reading. She thought it meant he didn't care. Now she knew better. He was cataloging, storing data, building the exit in his mind before she even realized there were walls. He didn't leave to punish her. He left because she assumed he never would. That was the real wound, not the money, not the house, not the fallout. It was the fact that he saw her fully and still chose to walk away. And now she lived in echoes of a man she thought she owned, of a structure she thought she built, of a life she thought couldn't function without her at the center. She looked at the photo one last time before the screen dimmed, locked her phone, set it face down on the nightstand she no longer recognized as hers. Somewhere out there, he was alive in ways she never allowed him to be, and she would carry that truth longer than any court battle, any social fallout, any brand collapse. Because in the end, he didn't need to destroy her. He just needed her to watch him leave well.